The mining station Colonus Xerion 9 hung like a jagged metal splinter at the edge of the galaxy, its exterior pockmarked by meteorite impacts and corrosion from the sulfuric atmosphere of the planet it orbited. Inside this metallic labyrinth, three species coexisted in a carefully stratified hierarchy. The Crystella. Tall, elegant beings with iridescent skin who commanded the operation. Humans, who served as engineers and maintenance workers. And the Predators, hulking creatures with razor-sharp instincts who performed security and heavy labor under strict neural control. Lana Reyes tightened her blue woolen scarf around her neck as she descended into the maintenance tunnels of Level 9. At 28, she was already chief maintenance engineer of her sector, a position earned through relentless competence rather than political maneuvering. The scarf, hand-knitted by her grandmother before Lana had been recruited to this distant outpost, was her one concession to sentimentality in a place where personal attachments were discouraged as inefficient. Compliance check, Engineer Reyes, crackled her comm unit. The voice belonged to Supervisor Jareth, a man who followed regulations with religious fervor. Lana tapped her response code, the sound echoing through the metal tunnel. Level 9, Section 27. Routine inspection of energy conduits following yesterday's power fluctuation. Logged, came the terse reply. Remember, this is near Predator holding areas. No unnecessary contact. Completion estimated at Zor 900 hours. Lana rolled her eyes. 5 years on this station, and Jareth still treated her like a newcomer. Acknowledged. The maintenance shafts narrowed as she descended, the walls humming with the flow of energy that powered the mining operation. Temperature dropped steadily. Her breath became visible in small, crystallizing puffs. The blue scarf, practical now rather than merely sentimental, trapped precious warmth against her skin. Her headlamp cast elongated shadows as she turned a corner and approached the main junction box, then stopped abruptly. Something large blocked the passage ahead. Lana froze, her hand instinctively reaching for the pulse tool at her belt. The shape ahead remained motionless, a dark mass against the metallic floor. Her headlamp caught a reflective gleam, scales, thick and obsidian-like, arranged in overlapping plates. A predator? Not just any predator, but one of the night dragons. The elite guard usually kept chained near the Crystella Command Center. But this one wasn't moving, and something else caught her eye, a vivid red liquid pooling beneath its massive form. Blood. Every station protocol, every safety briefing, every horror story whispered during off hours in the communal quarters told her what to do. Retreat. Report. Let security handle it. Predators were weapons, not colleagues. They were engineered for violence, their genetic code modified through generations of selective breeding. To approach an injured one was suicide. Lana took a step backward, then another. The predator's eye opened, a vertical slit of amber against midnight black. It tracked her movement without turning its head. Lana's heart hammered against her ribcage. Her fingers tightened around her pulse tool, knowing it would barely stun the creature if it decided to attack. The passage behind her offered escape, but something in that amber eye held her in place. It wasn't rage she saw there, it was resignation. Before she could rationalize her actions, Lana switched her comm unit to silent mode and approached the fallen creature. Its breathing came in shallow, labored gasps. Now closer, she could see the source of the blood, a deep gash along its side, exposing layers of muscle beneath the armored scales. Something had sliced through the creature's natural protection with surgical precision. "Who did this to you?" she whispered, knowing the predator couldn't understand her. Or at least, that's what the orientation videos claimed. The amber eye blinked slowly. The massive head, nearly the size of Lana's torso, shifted slightly, revealing a neural control collar embedded in the thick muscles of its neck. The device was standard equipment for controlling predators, but this one showed signs of tampering. Someone had tried to modify it, and in doing so, had damaged both the device and the creature. Lana made a decision that violated every regulation in the station handbook. She unwound the blue scarf from her neck and, with trembling hands, pressed it against the creature's wound. "This will hurt," she warned, then applied pressure. The predator's body tensed. A low growl vibrated through the metal floor, but it made no move to attack. Instead, its massive clawed hand, capable of tearing through reinforced steel, moved with unexpected gentleness to touch the edge of the blue fabric. I need to stabilize this before I can get proper medical supplies, Lana muttered, more to herself than to the creature. She reached into her toolkit and extracted a bonding spray used for temporary metal repairs. This isn't meant for biological material, but it should help stop the bleeding. Working quickly, she fashioned a makeshift bandage using her scarf and the industrial adhesive. The predator remained still throughout the process, its amber eye never leaving her face. When she finished, Lana sat back on her heels. "I'll come back," she promised, knowing she had already crossed a line that could cost her position, or worse. "Don't move too much. That bandage won't hold if you do." As she gathered her tools and prepared to leave, the predator made a sound unlike anything she'd heard from its kind before. A low, melodic rumble that seemed to form patterns. Not the threatening growls used to intimidate, but something that carried intention. It was trying to communicate. Lana paused, then touched her fingers briefly to the creature's scaled forehead. "I'll be back," she repeated. "That's a promise." She returned to her scheduled tasks, completing them with mechanical efficiency while her mind raced. By the time she checked in with Supervisor Jareth, her decision was made. She would return to the predator, regardless of consequences. That night, after her shift ended, Lana gathered medical supplies from the human infirmary, bandages, antiseptic, painkillers designed for large mammals. She slipped away during the station's night cycle when surveillance was at its minimum and corridors were nearly empty. The predator remained where she had left it, though it had shifted position slightly. The makeshift bandage showed signs of seepage, but had largely held. When Lana approached, the creature's head lifted in recognition. "Let's get you properly patched up," she said softly, kneeling beside the massive form. "I brought something for the pain, too." Over the next 2 hours, Lana cleaned the wound properly, applied medical-grade bandages, and administered painkillers through a hypodermic designed for creatures 3 times human size. Throughout the process, the predator remained docile, occasionally making those same melodic rumbling sounds. "You need a name," Lana said as she finished securing the fresh bandages. "I can't keep calling you Predator in my head. That's what they call you, not who you are." The creature's scaled brow ridges shifted in what almost looked like curiosity. "Dracor," she decided. In Old Earth mythology, it means dragon of the night skies. The amber eye blinked slowly, and the creature, Dracor, made a soft rumbling sound that Lana chose to interpret as acceptance. Over the following weeks, Lana established a routine. By day, she performed her maintenance duties with her usual efficiency. By night, she visited Dracor, bringing food scraps from the human mess hall and fresh bandages as the wound gradually healed. She began speaking to the creature constantly, describing her day, explaining station operations, even confiding her frustrations with the rigid hierarchy that kept humans subordinate to the Crystella. To her surprise, Dracor appeared to listen, his amber eyes tracking her movements, head tilting at inflections in her voice. 23 days after their first encounter, Lana arrived at their meeting place with an unusual device, a small translator module she had modified from spare parts in the maintenance bay. "This is probably pointless," she admitted as she attached sensors to the neural control collar around Dracor's neck. "The xenolinguists claim your species doesn't have language capability beyond basic aggression signals, but I've been listening to you, and there's pattern there. Structure?" Dracor remained perfectly still as she worked, a far cry from the savage beast described in station briefings. "Let's test it," Lana said when the connections were complete. She activated the device, which hummed softly as it processed input. "Can you understand me?" Dracor made a series of low, rumbling sounds. The translator crackled, then produced broken, fragmented words. "Understand, yes, long time." Lana nearly dropped the device. You comprehend human speech?" How long have your kind been able to understand us? More rumbles, followed by the mechanical translation. Always, not allowed, speak, pain. Lana's eyes widened in horror as understanding dawned. The neural collars, they punish you for communicating? She examined the device embedded in Dracor's neck more carefully and noticed the circuitry that extended into the brainstem. That's barbaric. Over the next few nights, as Dracor's wound continued to heal and his strength returned, their communication improved. Lana refined the translator, and Dracor learned to modulate his vocalizations to be more easily interpreted by the device. Why help? Dracor asked one night, the translator conveying his deep, resonant voice with increasing fidelity. Humans fear, avoid. Lana considered the question as she changed his bandages, the blue scarf now permanently incorporated into the healing wound. I guess I saw something in your eyes that didn't match what we've been told about your kind. Intelligence, pain, awareness. Blue cloth, Dracor rumbled, one massive claw gently touching the scarf. Important. It was my grandmother's, Lana explained. The last thing she gave me before I left Earth, a piece of home. Now part of Dracor, the predator observed. Connection. Lana smiled. Yes, I suppose it is. Their nighttime meetings continued, but the secret became increasingly difficult to maintain. Supervisor Jareth had noticed discrepancies in Lana's movement logs and the missing medical supplies from the infirmary. You've been accessing restricted areas. Reyes. Jareth confronted her one day as she completed maintenance on the upper-level atmospheric regulators. His thin face was pinched with suspicion. Care to explain? Just thoroughness, sir, Lana replied, keeping her expression neutral. Some of the conduits in the lower levels showed signs of stress fractures during my last inspection. I've been monitoring them during off hours. Jareth's eyes narrowed. Without filing the appropriate reports, I wanted to gather complete data before raising potentially false alarms, she countered, praying he wouldn't check the specific locations she had accessed. I'm watching you. Reyes, Jareth said finally. The Cristela have noticed supply discrepancies as well. If I discover you're engaged in prohibited activities, I'll have no choice but to report you to command. After he left, Lana leaned against the wall, heart pounding. Time was running out. Dracor was nearly healed, but she couldn't simply release him into the station. His neural collar, though damaged, still connected him to the Predator control system. Without proper deactivation, alarms would trigger the moment he moved beyond their meeting place in the maintenance tunnels. That night, she brought tools to examine the neural collar more closely. I think I can disable the tracking component, she told Dracor as she carefully probed the device. But the pain-inducing mechanism is integrated too deeply. Removing it completely would require surgery I'm not qualified to perform. Dracor's massive head inclined toward her. Freedom worth pain, he rumbled. There's something else, Lana said hesitantly. Even if I disable the tracking, where would you go? The station is isolated, and the planet below is uninhabitable without protection. The Predator was silent for a long moment. Others like me, he finally said, in lower levels. Caged. Free them too. Lana's eyes widened. That would be considered insurrection. Dracor? The Cristela would execute anyone involved. Choice, Dracor rumbled. Always choice. Stay slave, or risk death for freedom. Before Lana could respond, a station-wide alarm began blaring, its piercing wail echoing through the maintenance tunnels. Red emergency lights flashed, bathing everything in crimson. What's happening? She asked, already reaching for her comm unit. The station-wide announcement system crackled to life. Alert! Security breach in Docking Bay 7. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Repeat. Security breach in Docking Bay 7. Lana activated her comm. Reyes to control. What's the situation? Jareth's voice came through, tense and clipped. Shadow warriors. They've breached the outer hull and disabled the primary defense grid. All non-security personnel should shelter in place immediately. Lana's blood ran cold. The Shadow Warriors were notorious throughout the galaxy, a mercenary faction that specialized in raiding remote stations for resources, particularly biological specimens they could sell to the highest bidder. Their raids were brutal, efficient, and rarely left survivors. She turned to Dracor, who had risen to his full height, towering over her. His amber eyes had narrowed to slits, and the scales along his spine were raised in a defensive posture. "They hunt my kind," he growled, the translator barely necessary to convey his meaning. "Harvest organs, collect neural tissue." The station shuddered violently, nearly throwing Lana off her feet. Dracor's massive arm shot out, steadying her with surprising gentleness. The defense systems, Lana realized. They're targeting the central command hub. If they take that, they'll have control of life support, security protocols, everything. Another explosion rocked the station, closer this time. The lights flickered, plunging them momentarily into darkness before the emergency systems engaged. Lana made a split-second decision. "I'm going to disable your tracker," she told Dracor, already reaching for her tools. "Whatever happens next, at least you'll have a chance." Working rapidly, she bypassed the security features of the neural collar, disabling the location monitoring while carefully avoiding the pain induction circuitry. "There," she said finally. "You can move freely now, but the collar is still partially active. If you try to remove it completely—" "Pain," Dracor finished for her. "Understand." The comm unit crackled again. Jareth's voice came through, now panicked. "They're breaching level 4, all security forces overwhelmed. Cristela Command has—" The transmission cut off abruptly. Lana looked up at Dracor. Her decision made. "The maintenance tunnels connect to all levels. We can use them to reach the secondary control room on level 2. From there, I might be able to restore some of the defense systems." "We," Dracor repeated, the single word carrying a weight of significance. "Yes, we," Lana confirmed. "I'm not leaving you behind, and you know these tunnels as well as I do now." Together, they navigated the narrow maintenance shafts, Dracor moving with surprising agility despite his massive size. The sounds of combat grew louder as they ascended. Weapons fire, screams, and the distinctive electronic whine of the Shadow Warriors' neural disruptors. They had almost reached level 3 when they encountered the first group of station workers fleeing the attack. A mix of human technicians and junior Cristela administrators. Their usual hierarchical divisions forgotten in the face of shared danger. The group froze at the sight of Dracor, several reaching for emergency weapons. "Wait!" Lana stepped between them and the Predator. "He's with me. He's not going to hurt you." "Are you insane?" A Cristela female with pale blue skin stared at Lana in disbelief. "That's a night dragon. It's programmed to kill." "His name is Dracor," Lana said firmly. "And right now, he's probably your best chance of survival. The Shadow Warriors have breached level 4 and disabled primary defense systems. We're heading to the secondary control room." "The control room is lost," said one of the human technicians, a man with burns across half his face. "We just came from there. The Warriors have some kind of new technology. They're overriding our systems faster than we can lock them out." Lana's mind raced. "What about the emergency evacuation pods?" "Blocked," the injured technician replied grimly. "They targeted those first. Standard Shadow Warrior tactics. Cut off escape, then hunt down survivors." A distant explosion shook the tunnel, sending dust and debris raining down on them. "We need weapons," Dracor rumbled, his voice causing several of the group to step back in alarm. "It talks?" The Cristela administrator's eyes widened in shock. "Later." Lana cut her off. "Right now, we need a plan. If we can't escape and can't access the control systems, our only option is to fight back directly." "With what?" demanded another human worker. "Security forces have the only real weapons, and they've been overrun." Lana turned to look at Dracor, an idea forming. "Not the only weapons," she said quietly. She addressed the group. "The maintenance bay on level 5 contains industrial cutting tools, plasma welders, and the central node for the Predator control system. Understanding dawned in Dracor's amber eyes. Free others like me, he rumbled. Fight warriors. That's insanity, the Cristela administrator objected. Releasing the Predators would be suicide. They'd kill us all. Not if they have a choice, Lana countered. Not if they're given the same opportunity I gave Dracor, to be treated as sentient beings rather than tools. Before the argument could continue, the tunnel access door at the far end burst open. 3 shadow warriors stood framed in the opening, their sleek black armor absorbing the emergency lighting, red sensor arrays where eyes should be scanning the group methodically. Biological specimens detected, announced the lead warrior, its voice a synthetic approximation of speech. Categorizing 12 human workers, Class C value, 3 Cristela administrators, Class B value, 1 Night Dragon Predator, Class A value, commencing collection. The warriors raised their weapons, long, barbed instruments designed to incapacitate rather than kill, preserving the specimens for later processing. Dracor moved with explosive speed. Before the warriors could fire, he charged down the narrow tunnel, his massive form becoming a battering ram of scale and muscle. The lead warrior discharged its weapon, the barbed projectile embedding itself in Dracor's shoulder without slowing his advance. The collision was devastating. Dracor slammed into the lead warrior with enough force to bend the metal door frame, his claws finding gaps in the warrior's armor with surgical precision. The other 2 warriors fired simultaneously, their projectiles striking Dracor's back and side. Lana didn't hesitate. She grabbed a heavy wrench from her toolkit and rushed forward, the station workers too stunned by the sudden violence to stop her. The battle in the confined space was brutal and brief. Dracor's natural armor deflected the worst of the warriors' attacks, while his raw strength overwhelmed their tactical advantages. Lana targeted the joints in their armor, using her knowledge of mechanical systems to identify weaknesses. When it ended, all 3 warriors lay motionless on the tunnel floor. Dracor stood over them, bleeding from multiple wounds but unbowed. Lana's blue scarf, still incorporated into the original healing wound, had come partially loose, the fabric now stained with fresh blood. She reached up and carefully tucked it back into place. "Are you all right?" Dracor rumbled an affirmative. "Others come soon. Must move." The station workers stared at the scene in disbelief. A human engineer and a predator, fighting side by side against a common enemy. "You see?" Lana addressed them, breathing heavily from the exertion. "He could have left us to die. That's what you'd expect from a mindless killer, right? Instead, he fought to protect us." She turned to the group. "Now, who's with me? We need to reach level 5 and free the other predators." The injured technician stepped forward first. "I've worked the control systems for the predator pens for 5 years. Never thought of them as anything but dangerous animals. If I was wrong..." He nodded grimly. "I'll help." One by one, the others agreed, some reluctantly, some with growing determination. The Cristela administrator was the last, her iridescent skin shifting colors with her conflicting emotions. "This violates every protocol established since first contact with the predator species," she said finally. "But then, so does being harvested by shadow warriors." She straightened her posture, dignity reasserting itself. "I will assist." They moved as a group through the maintenance tunnels, encountering small bands of fleeing workers and bringing them into their growing resistance. Dracor's presence initially caused panic, but the sight of the blue scarf embedded in his scales and his obvious cooperation with Lana gradually earned tentative acceptance. By the time they reached level 5, their number had swelled to nearly 30, a mix of humans, Cristela, and even a few other species Lana hadn't known were stationed on Zirion 9. The maintenance bay was mercifully clear of shadow warriors, who had focused their initial attack on command centers and living quarters. The central node for the Predator control system stood in the corner, a cylindrical unit covered in blinking lights and monitoring screens. "This controls all the neural collars?" Lana asked the technician who had volunteered to help. He nodded. The primary function is to prevent predators from entering restricted areas or attacking station personnel. It can also administer various levels of correction. His expression revealed discomfort with the euphemism. Can you disable it completely? Lana asked. The technician shook his head. Not without triggering a failsafe that would activate the lethal components in each collar. But I can modify the parameters, set the system to recognize more beings as friendly and fewer areas as restricted. Do it, Lana instructed, and add the Shadow Warriors to the threat category. While the technician worked, Lana distributed the industrial tools as makeshift weapons: plasma welders, hydraulic cutters, reinforced pry bars. Not ideal for combat, but better than facing the warriors empty-handed. How many predators are kept on this station? She asked Dracor. 27, he rumbled. Different types. Night dragons like me, 6, others smaller, faster. The Cristella administrator approached cautiously. You understand that if this fails, if your kind turn on us once released, none of us will survive. Dracor's amber eyes fixed on her. Same true of humans, same true of Cristella. All species choose violence or cooperation. Before she could respond, the technician called out from the control node. It's done. I've reconfigured the parameters. The predators will register all station personnel as friendly and the Shadow Warriors as hostile targets. How do we release them? Lana asked. The holding pens are on the level below us. The technician explained. There's access through. An explosion rocked the maintenance bay, throwing several people to the floor. The main doors blew inward in a shower of metal fragments and smoke. Through the haze stepped a figure taller than the other Shadow Warriors, its armor more elaborate, with trophies of past hunts, scales, claws, and other biological specimens attached to its shoulders and chest plate. The commander, whispered one of the workers in terror. The Shadow Commander surveyed the room, its sensor array lingering on Dracor. Interesting, it said, its synthetic voice deeper and more modulated than the others. A night dragon cooperating with lesser species, a rare aberration. More warriors poured in behind their leader, weapons raised. The station personnel backed away, their makeshift weapons suddenly seeming woefully inadequate. Your resistance is noted for its novelty, but ultimately futile. The commander continued. This station and all biological assets within it now belong to the Shadow Collective. Lana stepped forward, positioning herself between Dracor and the commander. In her hand, she held a rust-stained repair sword, a long, sharpened tool used for cutting through damaged hull sections. Not a weapon by design, but lethal nonetheless. This station belongs to the people who work here, she said, her voice steady despite her fear. And they are not biological assets. They're living beings with rights, including the predators. The commander tilted its head, sensor array flickering. Brave, but foolish. Your species always anthropomorphizes dangerous animals. It is why you remain so vulnerable. You're wrong, Lana replied. And I can prove it. She turned slightly, addressing the technician without taking her eyes off the commander. Release the predators. Now. The technician hesitated only briefly before activating the command sequence. Alarms blared as the holding pen doors on the level below slid open. The commander realized what was happening too late. It signaled its warriors to attack. But in that moment, Dracor surged forward, placing himself in front of Lana and the station personnel. What followed was chaos. The released predators poured into the maintenance bay through service ducts and ventilation shafts, their massive forms moving with coordinated precision that belied their reputation as mindless beasts. They engaged the Shadow Warriors with terrifying efficiency, seeming to instinctually understand who the enemy was. Lana found herself back-to-back with Dracor, her repair sword slashing at any warrior that came too close, while his claws tore through their advanced armor like paper. The battle spread throughout the level, then to adjacent sections as the Shadow Warriors called for reinforcements. The station's original security forces, seeing the predators fighting alongside station personnel, cautiously joined the resistance. The tide turned when Dracor confronted the Shadow Commander directly. The commander had technology and tactical training, but Dracor had raw power and something the Shadow Warriors could never understand: motivation beyond self-preservation. When the commander fired a barbed projectile directly at Lana, Dracor intercepted it with his own body, the barb embedding deeply in his chest. Rather than retreating, he used the connecting wire to pull the commander toward him, into the reach of his claws. The final confrontation happened quickly. The commander's armor, designed to withstand conventional weapons, provided little protection against Dracor's natural armaments. When it ended, the commander lay motionless, its sensor array dark. Seeing their leader fallen, the remaining Shadow Warriors began a tactical retreat, fighting their way back to their ships. Station security, now coordinating with the freed predators, pursued them through the corridors. In the maintenance bay, Lana rushed to Dracor's side. The barbed projectile had penetrated deeply, and blood poured from the wound. "Hold on," she urged, already reaching for medical supplies. "We've won. They're retreating. Just hold on." Dracor's massive form shuddered. "Protected? Pack," he rumbled, the translator struggling to convey the depth of emotion in his voice. "You gave choice. Honored. Debt? This isn't about debt," Lana insisted, tears forming in her eyes as she worked to stabilize the wound. "This is about friendship, partnership. Now stop talking like you're dying. You're not allowed to die after all this." Station medical personnel arrived, initially hesitating at the sight of a human tending to a wounded predator. The Cristela administrator, her iridescent skin now flushed with the adrenaline of battle, took charge. "This predator and his kind just saved this station," she announced. "Treat him with the same priority you would give any other defender." The next hours passed in a blur. The Shadow Warriors were driven completely from the station, their ships pursued by hastily organized defense craft. Casualties were high on both sides, but the station remained intact, its personnel shaken but alive. Lana refused to leave the medical bay where Dracor had been taken. She watched as Cristela and human doctors worked together, consulting hastily assembled data on predator physiology, fighting to save a being they had previously considered merely a dangerous tool. The projectile missed his primary heart. A Cristela physician informed her after several tense hours. His secondary cardiovascular system compensated for the blood loss. With his natural healing abilities and our treatment, he should recover fully. "And the neural collar?" Lana asked. "Can you remove it now?" The physician hesitated. "That's complicated. Medically, yes, it could be removed. But the political implications?" "Doctor," Lana said firmly, "that collar represents everything wrong with how we've treated the predators. If we're going to move forward after this, truly move forward, it needs to go." Before the physician could respond, the door to the medical bay slid open. A delegation of Cristela command staff entered, their formal attire contrasting sharply with the chaos of the medical facility. The lead Cristela, distinguished by elaborate markings on her iridescent skin, approached Lana directly. "Engineer Reyes," she acknowledged with a formal inclination of her head. "I am Director Celine, acting commander of Colonus Zerion 9, following the unfortunate loss of our previous leadership." Lana straightened, suddenly aware of her blood-stained uniform and disheveled appearance. "Director, I have reviewed preliminary reports of today's events," Celine continued, her tone carefully neutral. "They describe actions on your part that violate no fewer than 17 station protocols regarding interaction with predator units." Lana's chin lifted. "If you're here to arrest me, Director, I suggest you consider the current mood of the station personnel first, both human and predator." A ripple of color passed across Celine's skin, the Cristela equivalent of a surprised blink. "Arrest you, Engineer Reyes? I am here to commend you." Now it was Lana's turn to be surprised. "Commend?" The Shadow Warrior attack was the most significant threat this station has faced in its operational history, Celine explained. "By conventional response metrics, we should have been overwhelmed. Instead, through your unconventional approach to interspecies cooperation. We not only survived but drove the attackers away completely. She glanced at Dracor's unconscious form. You have forced us to reconsider certain fundamental assumptions. The medical bay door opened again, and Supervisor Jareth entered. His thin face bruised, but his posture as rigid as ever. Director, the last of the Shadow Warrior vessels has been driven beyond sensor range. Station security is re-established on all levels. Thank you, Supervisor. Celine acknowledged. She returned her attention to Lana. We face significant rebuilding efforts, both physical and organizational. The events of today have revealed weaknesses in our defensive strategies, but also unexpected strengths in our community. The predators, Lana said, not as a question, but as a statement of fact. Yes, Celine agreed. Their actions today do not align with our historical understanding of their species. This suggests either a fundamental error in our assessment or a significant change in their behavior. She looked pointedly at the blue scarf still visible amid Dracor's scales. Perhaps both. Jareth cleared his throat. If I may, Director, Engineer Reyes has been conducting unauthorized interaction with the Predator-designated Night Dragon Alpha 7 for approximately 6 station weeks. She has maintained detailed logs of their communication. Lana shot him a surprised look. He knew. Seeing her expression, Jareth's severe face softened slightly. Security monitors all station activity. Engineer, your movements weren't as covert as you believed. I chose not to intervene immediately because, well, your results were intriguing. You knew about Dracor all along, Lana realized. And you didn't report me. I reported the facts, Jareth corrected. I simply waited to draw conclusions until I had sufficient data. Director Cellini made a gesture that silenced both of them. What matters now is moving forward. The relationship between our species, Cristela, human, and apparently, predator, requires re-examination. Engineer Reyes, when your friend recovers, I would like you to serve as intermediary in formal discussions. Intermediary? Lana repeated. Ambassador might be the more appropriate term. Celine clarified. You have demonstrated a unique ability to bridge the communication gap between our species. We would be foolish not to utilize that ability as we establish new protocols. Before Lana could respond, a low rumble came from the medical bed. Dracor's amber eyes had opened, focusing immediately on Lana. Blue. Still there, he managed, one massive claw gesturing weakly toward the scarf embedded in his scales. Lana moved to his side, taking his claw in her hands. Of course it is. I told you it was a connection, remember? Dracor's attention shifted to the Cristela delegation, his expression unreadable to most. But Lana had learned to interpret the subtle shifts in his scale patterns. He was wary, but not hostile. This is Director Celine. Lana introduced. She wants to talk about changing how predators are treated on the station. Dracor rumbled softly, the translator beside the bed converting. Talk good, better than pain, better than fear. Celine approached cautiously, her natural Cristela grace making the movement seem almost ceremonial. On behalf of Station Command, I extend formal recognition of your people's contribution to our collective survival. We propose discussions regarding improved conditions and potential integration. Dracor's amber eyes studied her for a long moment. Then, with deliberate care, he extended his massive claw toward her in what Lana recognized as an approximation of a human handshake, something she had taught him during their secret meetings. Begin new way, he rumbled. Together. 3 months later, Colonus Zerion 9 had been transformed. The physical damage from the Shadow Warrior attack had been repaired, but the changes went far deeper than restored infrastructure. Predators now moved freely through many areas of the station, their neural collars replaced with translator devices similar to the one Lana had created for Dracor. They served not as controlled security forces, but as equal partners in station operations, their natural strengths complementing the technical skills of humans and the administrative abilities of the Cristela. In the central command hub, a ceremony was underway. Director Selene stood on a raised platform, addressing representatives from all three species. Today marks the formal establishment of the Tri-Species Cooperative Agreement, she announced, her iridescent skin shifting through patterns of formal significance. For too long, we operated under assumptions of natural hierarchy and inherent roles. The Shadow Warrior attack forced us to question those assumptions, and in doing so, revealed a better path forward. Lana stood to one side of the platform, dressed in a formal uniform that designated her new role as Reconciliation Ambassador. Beside her towered Dracor, fully recovered from his injuries, the blue scarf now permanently incorporated into a harness that held his translator device. I call forward Engineer, now Ambassador, Lana Reyes, and Night Dragon, now Council Representative, Dracor. Selene continued. As they stepped onto the platform together, a murmur ran through the assembled crowd. Many still found the sight of human and predator as equals difficult to accept, despite the evidence of recent months. Their partnership began with a simple act of compassion, Selene said, gesturing to the blue scarf visible against Dracor's obsidian scales. A human engineer who saw beyond species designations to recognize a sentient being in pain. A predator who chose trust over aggression, despite generations of conditioning. Together, they have shown us what is possible when we move beyond fear and control toward mutual respect. Lana looked up at Dracor, remembering their first encounter in the maintenance tunnel. How close she had come to following protocol and walking away. How different things would have been if she had. Dracor rumbled softly, the sound now familiar and comforting to her ears. The translator at his throat converted. Small choices, big changes. The biggest, Lana agreed quietly. Director Selene raised her hands, signaling the formal beginning of the new era. Let the records show that on this day, Colonus Zerion 9 recognizes all sentient species as equal partners in our continued mission. Where once we maintained division, we now seek unity. Where once we enforced compliance, we now invite cooperation. As the ceremony concluded and the crowd dispersed, Lana and Dracor made their way to the observation deck overlooking the mining operation below. The massive excavators now operated with human technicians and predator strength working in tandem, achieving efficiency levels that had previously seemed impossible. Did you ever imagine this? Lana asked, leaning against the railing. When I found you that day, did you think any of this was possible? Dracor considered the question, his amber eyes reflecting the industrial lights below. Not imagine, he finally rumbled, but hope. Always hope for more than pain and commands. Lana reached up to touch the blue scarf nestled against his scales. My grandmother used to say that hope is the most powerful force in the universe. More powerful than fear, more enduring than hatred. Wise human, Dracor observed. Like you. Lana laughed. I wasn't wise, I was just human. Responding to suffering with compassion isn't wisdom, it's instinct. At least, it should be. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the integrated work crews below. After a while, Dracor spoke again, his rumbling voice thoughtful. Blue cloth more than connection now, he said. Symbol. For others to see. Remember how change started. Lana nodded. A reminder that sometimes the smallest actions have the greatest consequences. That compassion can overcome generations of fear. Beyond the viewport, the distant sun of the Zerion system was setting, casting long shadows across the mining landscape. But within the station, new lights were coming on. Not the harsh industrial illumination of before, but softer. More varied lighting designed to accommodate the visual preferences of all three species. What happens next? Dracor asked, his question encompassing far more than just their immediate future. Lana looked up at him. At this being she had once been taught to fear, who now stood as her closest ally and friend. We keep building, she said simply. We keep showing others what's possible when we choose connection over division. And we remember that even the most dangerous-seeming predator might just be waiting for someone to see beyond the surface. Dracor's rumble of agreement vibrated through the deck beneath their feet. a sound that once would have signaled danger but now carried only affirmation and friendship. The blue scarf, forever a part of him now, caught the light as he moved, a small bridge between worlds that had opened the way for so much more.